At the top of the tower, there was a single room. To reach it, you had to climb the full height of a 30-story building. Almost no one was permitted inside. And in that room, there was no statue of a god. There was no altar. There was no table set for sacrifice. There was a bed, a large bed, richly covered, and beside it, a table of gold. This is not a legend. It is written in one of the oldest works of history we possess. Around the middle of the 5th century before Christ, a Greek writer traveled through the ancient world, collecting stories. His name was Herodotus. Later generations would call him the father of history, and he left behind a description of the great Tower of Babylon. He recorded its shape, its stairways, and what he was told about its summit. It is one of the very few accounts of that tower written by someone who claimed to have seen it. But there is a problem. Scholars still argue about whether Herodotus ever set foot in Babylon at all. Some of his measurements do not match what archaeologists have found in the ground, and some of what he describes may have reached him through travelers, rather than through his own eyes. So we have to read him carefully, but we cannot ignore him. He is the closest thing to a witness that we have. Herodotus describes a tower built in solid stages, one set upon another. He counts 8 of them, and that is worth pausing on, because the stele carved by Nebuchadnezzar himself shows 7. One of them is wrong, and we still do not know which. He describes a stairway that wound around the outside of the tower, circling it as it climbed. Halfway up, he says, there was a resting place with seats. Those making the ascent would stop there and sit down. It is a small detail, and an oddly human one. The climb was long enough that people needed to rest, and at the end of that climb stood a shrine. This is where the account becomes strange. Inside the shrine, Herodotus writes, there is a great couch spread with fine coverings. Beside it stands a table of gold, and there is no image of the god. Nothing at all is set up there. In temple after temple across that world, a statue marked the presence of the deity. Here, at the highest and most sacred point in all of Babylon, there was none. No one sleeps in that room, he writes, except a single woman. One woman, chosen by the god from among all the women of the land. This, he says, is what the Chaldean priests told him. And they told him one thing more. They said that the god himself descends into that chamber and lies down upon the bed. Then Herodotus adds one short line of his own. He writes that he does not believe them. So what was actually happening in that room? There are 3 answers, and not one of them is settled. The first is ritual. Mesopotamian religion knew a rite that scholars call the sacred marriage, a union between a god and a chosen woman, renewing the fertility of the land and the authority of the king. Texts describing it survive from more than 1,000 years before Herodotus was born. Whether it was ever physically performed or only recited as poetry is still argued over today. The second answer is the sky. Babylonian astronomers were the finest in the ancient world. They tracked the planets for centuries, and their records are so precise that astronomers still use them. A platform 90 meters above a flat plain would have been an extraordinary place to watch the stars. The third answer is the simplest one, that Herodotus was told a story and wrote it down. We do not know which of these is true. What we do know is that the highest room in Babylon held no god. It held an empty bed, a table of gold, and a woman waiting through the night. Herodotus recorded all of it and then told us plainly that he did not believe it. But 2,000 years before he ever arrived, others had already written about this tower, and they were not Greek. To be continued.